Unified, our kindergarten programs are designed to ensure that your child is known, valued, cared for, and challenged. Kindergarten is so much more than just the ABCs. It is where creativity is encouraged and bright minds blossom in a fun and safe environment. In Peoria Unified, we strive to make this an easy adjustment for parents to ensure your child is well prepared for the best possible educational experience. If you have an incoming kindergartner who will turn 5 by September 1st, 2024, visit peoriaunified.org/kindergarten for more information about how to reserve your child's seat in our kindergarten program. Enroll today. Peoria Unified, our kindergarten programs are designed to ensure that your child is known, valued, cared for, and challenged. Kindergarten is so much more than just the ABCs. It is where creativity is encouraged and bright minds blossom in a fun and safe environment. In Peoria Unified, we strive to make this an easy adjustment for parents to ensure your child is well prepared for the best possible educational experience. If you have an incoming kindergartner who will turn 5 by September 1st, 2024, visit peoriaunified.org/kindergarten for more information about how to reserve your child's seat in our kindergarten program. Enroll today.
As we're just getting logged in, it's thinking. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's board meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. We hope everyone is enjoying your summer and appreciate everyone who's willing to show up this evening. We are going to begin with our moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance led by Mrs. Rooks. Thank you. We're going to continue with section 3, address agenda and considering adoption. Is there any comments from board members this evening?
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Ewing.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I don't have any changes, so if you wanted to have changes, Heather.
I don't have any other.
Okay.
I just, again, the last meeting went till about 10 o'clock, and we had some people leave that wanted to speak under public comment because it was too late. So just going to request moving public comment again back up to the beginning.
Is there a second? Okay. I'm going to request that we pull 5.3 Human Resources Report from the consent agenda.
I will second for you.
Thank you. We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Rooks. If there are no other comments, I motion that we adopt this agenda as presented minus 5.3 from consent.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your votes.
President Proudfit, Dr. Summers, and members of the board, we may need to refresh our screens. I am seeing that the motion passed with 4 yeas.
Great. Thank you. And just for those that are wondering, now that we're down to a board of 4, just a quick explanation of how this will go. If there's a split vote, it goes to the noes automatically. So just if anyone had any questions about voting tonight and in the future before we welcome more board members in January. Great. All right, we're going to be moving on to recognitions, turning the time over to Ms. Airy.
President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers has all of our recognitions when we get to 4.3.
Wonderful, thank you. Moving on to 4.2, board comments. We'll start with you, Mrs. Ewing.
Okay, I know that several of you already have probably next week scheduled, but I was able to attend today, that was this morning, yes, a tour over at Frontier Elementary, the Frontier Elementary and Coyote Hills combined summer school program. So, and that's our accelerated program. So it was really great to see all of the different formats of teaching, the small groups, and the co-teaching, and all of the engagement with the students. I did get a chance to talk to some of the teachers and the staff, and they said that they've had an increased amount of students that have been coming to the program because they have been talking to other parents who have talked about the success of that program. So that's really exciting. We talked about how great it would be to have community come in and see what's going on in the schools, and being able to push that out to our community, because it's some really great things that are happening, not only for those students who have some gaps to fill in knowledge, but also for students who just need that extra time for learning and so forth. So it's really great, and I really appreciate everything they're doing, and all of our staff that's putting forth the effort for our summer school programming. So that's really exciting. And then I was at the ASBA conference this past week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Really great things happening up there. There was some open meeting law updates and so forth, and some great conversations in regards to how different schools are handling chronic absenteeism. So that was really great to have those conversations. So, and I know Father's Day is coming up, so congratulations, and hope you all enjoy your time with your family with Father's Day coming up. And I'll pass it on to David.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so this week I had the opportunity to visit the Real-Time Crime Center in the city of Glendale. Very impressed, where they talked about just the strength and the partnership between that city and the Peoria Unified School District, and, how those conversations began. I don't know, maybe, I think it was about 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, what was reported out. But I do appreciate, Mrs. Rooks kind of bringing that conversation back to the top of the inbox, if you will. It's just the impact that the system has, not only on, police safety when they're out there, but also efficiencies and certainly the very optimized response times, et cetera, ensuring that our students, teachers, and staff are safe. So just I want to acknowledge the city of Glendale and certainly their partnership with the Peoria Unified School District for many years, and how they just continue to be forward-thinking, and looking forward to the city of Peoria of integrating that into their capacity as they move forward. So there's that, and the only other thing I want to say is, it's a hot one out there today, so everybody stay cool for the rest of the summer. So welcome.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yeah, I know that the Real-Time Crime Center, our tour's coming up with President Proudfit. I believe Dr. Summers will be there, Mr. Molino, and our new Director of Safety. So that'll be exciting to, get to see it again. I've seen it before, but seeing it again to see how they'll bring it into our school system and working with our SROs in the city at our schools. So I'm really looking forward to that tour again. That's coming up, and I just wanted to wish everybody a great rest of your summer. I hope you all are enjoying your vacation time. I want to say thank you to our teachers and staff that are on campus right now, that are, like you said, Mrs. Ewing, that are working through the summer programs, but also getting ready for, I know principals are doing hiring right now, trying to prepare for the next school year. So I want to say thank you to them. And also a happy Father's Day to all of our dads coming up.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to touring in early July. We are going to tour the Real-Time Crime Center. Very excited to looking at the implications for our district. Have to say happy Father's Day. The father of my children is here. Thank you, honey. You're a great father. And supporter, you often see him here at meetings. But for all the fathers and for all the father figures in the district, I think sometimes that role doesn't get the due credit that it has earned. And so thank you to all the people who are courageously leading as fathers. I wanted to make a quick mention of some summer school opportunities. I actually have a tour coming up for the summer schools. But I have been really impressed as just the mother of a high school student to see what students who want learning over the summer, what they have access to. My daughter's doing, I think, Spanish 1 and 2 this summer. And it's great because it gives her an opportunity to do that and then come back to the school year and to take more electives and dive deeper into her studies. And so I've been very impressed with Sunrise Mountain and her guidance counselor in particular for offering those opportunities. So if anyone wants to learn more, there are so many summer opportunities out there for learners who want to continue. And then this week I had the opportunity, which I'm doing pretty much all summer, but volunteering at some of the sports camps that are happening and beginning at our high schools across the district. And so it's been really neat to see the bright shining faces of incoming freshmen having kind of their first experience in the high schools, and it's been great to do that, and I look forward to continuing that throughout the summer. All right. Oh, sorry.
President Profit, I just wanted to, because I don't think any of us, I was waiting to see if you would mention it, but we did participate in a board retreat last week. Yeah, it's summer, it's hot, everybody's hot and tired. So we did all participate in the board retreat. We were working on superintendent goals for our incoming superintendent, Dr. Summers. The meeting minutes are on, I believe, our agenda tonight, so the community can go back and look at our meeting minutes. We will be bringing the superintendent goals back to a future governing board meeting so that you can see the goals that we look forward to working with Dr. Summers on.
Yes.
So thanks, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That feels like it was a month ago, but yes, it was last week. And it was actually great. As a board, we were able to come up with, I think, 7 is what we kind of narrowed it down to, which may be consolidated into 5, but hopefully very simple, easy to follow goals that will help with transparency and follow-up and us all getting on the same page about what we're working on in our district moving forward. So thank you very much for bringing that up. All right, we're going to move. Oh, sorry. You good? Okay. You moved your hand. I just want to make sure. We're going to move on to superintendent comments. Dr. Summers?
Thank you, President Profit, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. So I'm pleased to share a few celebrations and highlights this evening with you, starting with several Peoria High School students who've been named Civics Matters Essay Competition winners, granting them the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. through the Arizona Cardinals football team. These students have shown exceptional writing skills and a passion and appreciation for civics, and will be able to experience our country's capital. We wish these Peoria Panthers the very best on their exciting trip. I would also like to congratulate the following Sunrise Mountain High School Mustangs on their athletic achievements. Well done, Savannah Dotre, for being named runner-up for West Valley Player of the Year for girls basketball, and Addison Weeman for being named to the 3rd West Valley team. And furthermore, congratulations to Coach Toll on being named West Valley Coach of the Year. Lastly, I want to congratulate Cactus High School Class of 2019 alum Emily Denzelau on graduating from the Air Force Academy. Cactus High's Air Force Junior ROTC instructors, retired Colonel Zamora and retired Chief Nelson, were honored to give Emily the oath and her first salute, respectively. Emily is now off to grad school in Maryland and then her first assignment in Germany. So thank you, Emily, for your service. And I just wanted to echo the comments. Thank you, Mrs. Brooks, for bringing up the experience from our board retreat. Really looking forward to building off of the conversations that we had and honing in on those goals and making sure that we have a very aligned governance board and superintendent partnership. So really looking forward to how we build off those conversations and share those with our community and getting ready for an exciting new school year right around the road, although we won't move it any faster than what the summer will allow for. So we also want to give a shout out and appreciate the comments with respect to our summer school programs, because there's also learning that's happening even when it's not officially or in a traditional school year calendar setting. So thank you again, and President Proudfoot, turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to 6.1 under items removed from consent, the Human Resources Report. I motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented minus the liquidated damages employees.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval.
President Proudfit, members of the board, Superintendent Summers and Cabinet, I believe I just want to ask for a clarification on the motion wording. Do we want to have the motion wording be similar to last time? And Ms. Vesley can speak to this as well. There are resignations on this board report that need to be approved, So the last meeting, we had a motion to approve the human resource reports with a modification to approve all resignations and to pause the assessment of all liquidated damages.
Yes. Is that
Okay.
good? Okay, yes.
Great, thank you. I will retype that motion wording. Give me one moment, please. President Proudfit, Clerk Sandoval, and members of the board, I apologize. Just one last clarification, please. Who made the motion and who made the second?
I made the motion and Mr. Sandoval seconded.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Motion passes with 4 yeas. All right, moving on to section 7, our action items. 7.1, consideration of administrative appointment for the Director of Transportation. We'll turn the time over to Ms. Vesley.
Transportation thing. Let me start again. I apologize. I know. I saw that. Oh, I'm so sorry. President Proudfit, members of the board, I'm excited tonight to bring forth for your consideration an appointment for our Director of Transportation. And it's recommended that Mr. Thomas Sims be appointed as Peoria Unified's next Director for Transportation. Mr. Sims started his career back in 2003 as a route specialist in the transportation department for the Litchfield Elementary School District. He worked as a route specialist until 2014 when he was promoted to Director of Transportation. He served in this role from 2014 to 2021. Mr. Sims then moved to Wisconsin, where he served as a regional director for Lammers Bus Lines and most recently moved into the role of Director of Operations, Safety, and Compliance for Northern Express Bus Service. And he's been with them since January of 2022. Mr. Sims received a bachelor's degree in secondary education with an emphasis in American literature. He also served as a consultant to the Arizona School Risk and Retention, the Trust, for 4 years. During this time, he created a statewide training program. It was a leadership and training for school bus driver trainers and transportation school bus drivers. He also instructed across the state of Arizona on behalf of the Trust for Leadership and Training and presented at conferences for Transportation Administrators of Arizona, Arizona Association of School Business Officials, or ASBO, Northern Arizona Student Transportation Association, and the Arizona School Boards Association. Mr. Sims also served for 8 years as a board member and treasurer for the Transportation Administrators of Arizona. We're excited that Mr. Sims is bringing his expertise in transportation administration to Peoria Unified, and we know that he's going to bring a wealth of knowledge to our department. And so it's at this time that we ask for your consideration and approval to name Mr. Thomas Sims as our next Director of Transportation.
Thank you. Board members, are there any questions or comments? I motion to approve the administrative appointment for the Director of Transportation position as presented.
I will second.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Congratulations, Mr. Sims.
Mr. Sims, come on up.
Madam President, members of the governing board, and district staff, I am excited to start this role with Peoria Unified. I was born and raised here in the West Valley. This is a hometown. This is my hometown. I'm excited to be back in the Phoenix area and take on this new role and take the transportation department to that next level that we know the excellence that the department can give.
Wonderful, and welcome to the district. Welcome back to the district, to your hometown. I mean, is it unique that we find someone with such expertise in bus transportation and an education degree? Like that's very impressive. I'm excited to see how you bring that wealth of knowledge to the position, and hopefully the buses here are substantially easier than the buses in Wisconsin, I imagine.
There's no snow to pull them out of ditches. I'm very excited for that.
Yes.
It's interesting. I did start my teaching career at Awafria, where I went to high school, and then, as we like to say, the bus took a wrong turn, and I ended in transportation, and I fell in love with this side of the district, where I got to see the students still and interact, but yet do the business side as well. So it's been exciting ever since. So,
Well, welcome. Congratulations. We're very excited to have you.
thank you very much.
Congratulations and welcome. We're definitely very excited. I share Mrs. Proudfoot's and I'm sure the rest of our board's excitement that you're coming on board. And I was noticing all of your great experience as far as with recruitment and stuff, so that I'm really excited to see that. And I know they have a really great team members over in our transportation department. So I'm sure they're looking forward to having you as their leader as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Just listening to you being well-traveled within this capacity of transportation and picking up a lot of best practices across those different markets and bringing those to Peoria Unified. And if I heard correctly, there's a safety component to your experience as well, and how that may also be applied along with our new Director of Safety and Security. And it's you're right. I mean, it takes a village, right? And our bus drivers, are in some cases the first individuals that our students see, and having that mindset from an education perspective and understanding that and how they also can make a difference in the lives of our young scholars is important. So congratulations. Just looking forward to you doing a lot of great things in that department.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yeah, congratulations. Welcome to Peoria Unified School District, and I look forward to seeing how you work under the transportation department, how you take charge, and just work towards making sure these kids can get to school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to 7.2, policy GCQC, liquidated damages. Turn the time over to Ms. Vesley.
Good evening once again, President Prophet, members of the board. Tonight we are seeking an opportunity for you, the board, to take an opportunity to temporarily suspend the liquidated damages that's currently in board policy. So that allows us later on this evening during our discussion item to have deeper discussions and to provide administration recommendations on next steps to better review this policy. And so we felt it would be appropriate to bring it forward tonight to temporarily suspend liquidated damages to allow the board time to review policy and to really help administration determine what those next steps are. Without approving temporary suspension, we would be bringing the HR board report back every single time like we did tonight and at our last board meeting, where we would have to make that motion to accept the HR board report, with the exception of, again, waiving those damages at this time. So this gives that opportunity for any discussion that you might have and the possibility to approve the temporary suspension of liquidated damages under policy GCQC for both certified staff and administrators beginning May 29th. Which takes us back to the last board meeting through July 31st, 2024. And that was, I was going for July 31st because I believe that will allow us enough time to look and have discussions tonight, bring back a first read at the next board meeting, and then a possible second read in July.
Wonderful, thank you. Board members, any questions, comments? Great. I motion to approve the temporary suspension of liquidated damages under policy GCQC for both certified staff and administrators beginning May 29th, 2024 through July 31st, 2024.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vesley. All right, moving on to 7.3, the second read of policy section JFABDA. Mr. Molino, are you presenting this?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Turn the time over to you.
President Proudfoot, members of the governing board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, administration is bringing forward several second read policies for the governing board's consideration and approval.
I just realized I forgot a public comment tied to 7.2. I'm looking at Charmel. Charmel? I'm so sorry.
May I suggest maybe speaking on the...
On the discussion item? Would that be okay? That's a great idea.
Yeah, the 8.3. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for that suggestion, Heather. All right, do we have any questions or comments concerning to JFABDA? No? Okay, I motion to approve changes to policy JFABDA as presented.
I will second.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Moving on to 7.4, the second read of policy section JH. Turn the time over to Mr. Molino again.
President Proudfoot, members of the governing board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and guests. This is just another second read policy bringing to the board for the board's consideration.
Board members, any questions or comments in regards to JH?
Nope.
All right, I motion to approve changes to policy JH as presented.
I will second.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Moving on to 7.5, a second read of policy section JHD. Mr. Molino?
President Proudfoot, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests. One moment. Terry, we lost projectors. President Proudfit, from 2 weeks ago, once we presented this policy, JHD as a first read in conversations with Arizona School Board Association, this policy is currently under another review by them in regards to the revised language to align it with statute, and they will be releasing it in their next policy advisory, which usually happens between August and October timeframe. The board currently, and this will happen after the legislature adjourns. At this time, the board has two options: is approve this version of the policy, which provides clarity and examples of a health professional, or table it and wait for a future revised version in a few months.
Board members, questions, comments?
President Prophet, I just want to make sure there's no public comment tied to this item. Just wanted to make sure.
Oh, there is.
Jeez, I was just trying to-
It's actually quite a bit. Or no, we have a few. All right. Mrs. Janelle Bowles, we're going to start with you.
Hello, good evening, Board, Cabinet. Here to address 7.5, the second read of JHD. Chronic health form needs to say licensed instead of certified. According to ARS Title 32, the definition states a licensed professional. So we have to follow the law, and this policy is not following the law. This narrative within the JHD from ASBA needs to match the law, signed by a licensed professional is what it needs to say. Asking the board to not approve this narrative tonight, the second read, and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Jeff Toby.
Yes, good evening. Reference this policy, I do agree that the term certified should actually be licensed in accordance with the statute, Title 32. Mr. Molina, I suspect that's probably what the revision is going to be, and we're making all these changes to policy to come in compliance with state statute, so this is one of those requirements that would have to be made. If you're going to have a certified behavioral health specialist write a note saying Johnny can't come to school for a couple of weeks due to depression or whatever the case is, then that certified professional is then diagnosing, which you have to be licensed to diagnose. So there's two problems. By definition, it needs to be changed, and also in practice, it's actually not according to the law. So I look forward to that revision. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments?
In the health industry, there is a difference between certification and licensures, and even across all of the professionals listed in red, there is a difference. So I just didn't know, I would like to hear if Mr. Molino, if you have any further information with regards to this, as I know that it was, I think Board Member Rooks asked for that in at the end of the last board meeting to get a little bit more of a definition of the understanding of the difference between licensure and certification. So I didn't know if you had any further items to add. And there's the second piece of it is, I know that all of our policies, yes, we have to be in accordance with the law, and that anything that has the copyright of ASBA on there has been through their lawyers as well. That's part, I believe that's part of it. And so my other question would be, have our lawyers had an opportunity to look at this to make sure it is all in compliance?
President Proudfit, Mrs. Ewing, in the first part of your question in regards to a licensed medical professional, that is the correct term, and that is probably why this policy is going to be going through one more revision to match it with statute. In regards to your second part of the question, the district does contract out to Arizona School Board Associations for policy management. At the time when this policy was first created, since it is copyrighted, I do not know why they kept the word certified in there at that point. And at that time, it did match the statute. And if the statute has changed since then, that is probably why they're changing it at this time.
Okay, so then, so thank you. So then the question becomes, if, just in terms of process, if we decide to change and put the license in there, I know the copyright thing has to come off, but then is there something that we as a board can get confirmation that, yes, legal has looked at this to make sure it is in compliance?
President Prout and Mrs. Ewing, at this time, I would not recommend that the district change this policy from the copyright version to a Peoria unified version by changing the word. I would recommend that we wait for the policy revision by ASBA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that response. I had a similar question, so I certainly support your recommendation to table until further notice for both those revisions. Thank you.
Mrs. Ricks?
I have to go back to what's written in law. And when we're talking about these chronic health forms that parents have to take to their child's licensed provider to have it filled out so that they can get it turned back in to the school nurse's office so that it's on file for the school year. And I don't believe that it is beneficial to put it on hold, especially when we're going to be starting school in August and waiting for the Arizona School Board Association to revise it. I would like to know like when it was passed, if it was a new one or if it wasn't a new law. But I think that moving forward as governing board, governing board members also have the opportunity to develop policy. And that's one of the roles that we have as a governing board is policies. And that's based off of Arizona state statute, which clearly it states here that it has to be signed by a licensed health professional. And so if that's what the law says, then I think that we shouldn't disregard that. We should be looking towards creating a policy based on the law. I mean, it's one word from certified to license. So that would just take off the copyright if it's certified to license and we're following the law. And waiting for the Arizona School Board Association to change one word in a policy that we need to have ready to go for our upcoming school year. I just don't think that that's very smart as a governing board. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. This one really to me is pretty simple because as you go through the statutes that they're referring, there's very clear verbiage in there. And when we're talking about this side of it, where it clearly does talk about in a lot of the statutes, diagnosis, prescription, I think it is, I agree with Mrs. Rooks, it's important that we have licensed in that verbiage. I think that, I agree, I don't want to be waiting for ASBA, especially if that means we're going to be beginning the school year without something concrete. So I would be in favor of changing that verbiage to licensed, like you were saying, checking with our in-house counsel to make sure that that is in line. And also too, voting that we do this tonight doesn't mean that we can't revise, right? We can pass this tonight and then have it revised if need be as we see how legislative session kind of realigns, because I'm guessing ASBA is just going to be realigning and tightening up that verbiage. But when we're talking about mental health, I think it's particularly important that we make sure that our verbiage is very clear. So that being said, I would, oh yes, go ahead.
So I just want to ask a question because I said something and then David said something different. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what the options were. What you had, Mr. Merlino, correct me if I didn't have this correct. You mentioned that you would recommend us waiting until we get the word from ASBA. David had mentioned about tabling it until, so I just wanted to make sure we were fully understanding all of the options, and that in addition to if the board is recommending, which I think that's the direction you were going of just changing the word licensed, would that still include, because I noticed on this what's redlined out, there's a whole sentence there, or half of a sentence that's redlined out. So would the recommended changes be doing all of those changes, redlining those items out, and then leaving all of the other language in there except for just changing that certified, just to licensed. So I just wanted to clarify so everybody understood what all the options were.
President Proudfit, Mrs. Ewing, in reading the red line, Terry, could you pull up the attachment, please? What I would recommend, we have one more board meeting in June, one regular board meeting in July, and I believe at the end of July is a board retreat. So we have 2 regular board meetings before the first day of school. What I would recommend in looking at that line, the district will provide appropriate educational opportunities for any student identified by, and then based off board feedback tonight, a licensed medical, mental, or behavioral health professional such as a physician, podiatrist, chiropractor, naturopathic doctor, osteopathist, psychologist, and then it moves on into the black line. So if that is the board's ask, I would recommend that we bring that back in a future regular board meeting, whether the second meeting in June or the first meeting in July, with that language, and we have our legal look at what adding that one word would do, and then we go from there.
So the motion would be to table.
Table it tonight. We will bring it back at the second meeting in June or the first meeting in July with that one change of changing by a certified to by a licensed.
Great. Is there any other questions, comments? Okay, so I motion that we table this to second meeting in June, first meeting in July, with the updated verbiage, appropriately certified being changed to licensed.
I will second.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast, by Mrs. Rooks. Jeez. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Moving on to 7.6, second read of policy section JJE. Mr. Molino.
President Proudfit, members of the governing board, Dr. Summers, cabinet and guests, just another second read policy of policy JJE.
Board members, any questions or comments? Okay, I motion to approve changes to policy JJE as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Moving on to 7.7, second read of policy section GBEF. Mr. Molino. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Vesley.
Thank you, President Proudfit, members of the board. This is the second read of policy GBEF. We made the recommended changes. We highlighted in yellow those areas of B, and the areas at the bottom were the areas that were inadvertently left off, and you see that the copyright is being removed.
Board members, any questions or comments? Nope. I motion to approve the approved changes to policy GBEF as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. Moving on to our last second read, section 7.8, second read of policy section GDC. Ms. Vesley?
Thank you again, President Proudfit, members of the board. This is just the second read where we are removing policy GDC.
Board members, any questions, comments? Okay. I motion to approve changes to policy GDC as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas. All right, moving on to our discussion items. Our first discussion item is a first read of policy section IHA, and we're going to turn the time over to Dr. Hernandez.
Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and guests. This evening's first read of policy IHA includes specific updates to social studies coursework and other language changes that bring clarity to the course of study for our elementary schools. First, at the bottom of page 1 onto the top of page 2, language has been added to underscore competency as being defined by the adopted state standards for each of the subject areas. Next, policy language has been updated to reflect program requirements for social studies specific to civics, the Holocaust, and the Constitutions, noting Peoria Unified is in compliance with these requirements. Next, policy language has been updated to reflect subject area requirements specific to health and physical education. Arizona Revised Statute 15701.03, mental health instruction. This comes from our multiple dimensions of health, which are embedded in the Arizona Health Standards, specifically Strand 1, Concept 2. Policy language allows for districts to meet this requirement in courses other than health. For example, in Peoria Unified, we do not offer health courses in our K-8, so we meet the state expectations by teaching the overlapping health standards in the physical education standards in our K-8 PE classes. For example, students in grade 1 learn to follow rules, play fair, how to handle losing a game, and how to take turns and problem solve. Children in grade 2, students will learn to be better teammates and learn conflict resolution. In grade 5, students will learn about the relationship between physical activity and good health, such as how exercise can help us improve our self-esteem. In middle school, students learn about stress while also learning to provide and support classmates in various physical activities. And finally, the last revision directs policy for graduation requirements to policy IKF. I'm available for any questions should you have any.
Thank you, and we do have a public comment tied to this. Ms. Janelle Bowles.
Thank you. Good evening again. She actually already covered everything that I was going to ask, but just to ask if we can clearly define for constituents to know that the narrative in here matches what you had said, and that being only taught in PE, because we do not have healthcare curriculum in K through 7, 8, and that it applies to exactly what she just described. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? Mrs. Ewing? Mr. Sandoval? Mrs. Rooks?
So I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Hernandez. She answered a lot of my questions today and my concerns with regards to what this updated policy was tonight in regards to the physical education. She walked me through the standards for the physical education for K through 8. With regard, I just had one question because I missed it maybe. I guess for the high school level, what would that look like for 9th through 12th grade?
The 9th through 12th grade piece is in our next policy, and there is one course at our high school level that would have this health component to it.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so she helped just answer another question just now. So thank you to Dr. Hernandez. I would maybe like to just suggest that families and the community are aware with regards to this policy, since it's a first read tonight, the next board meeting when we do the second read for it and we vote on it, if we could maybe attach the standards that go with these key components, so that if parents have questions, they can go and look at it. It's posted on the agenda. And then, moving forward, if it does pass, like what that looks like for communication piece, to go out to the families. I don't know if that would be Miss Airy or with your department working together, just communicating to the families and the teachers and the principals of what this looks like. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to answer so many questions and for including some of those examples of how this actually looks in practice as a parent. I mean, it's wonderful when kids are learning that healthy eating and sleeping and drinking water and physical activity is good for their brains and their bodies and their life. I really appreciate that being brought in. And I actually would just like to say, as I thought about, how do I feel about there not being a health curriculum, class separate in K-8. I love that this is brought forward in a very practical way in the physical education setting. I think it is, it's the thing that can help them for the rest of their lives. And then I second what Ms. Rook says about having those standards just readily available for any parents who have any questions. So thank you very much. And thank you to you and Ms. Vesley for being here. I know you are both soldiering on right now, and you guys are very dedicated, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, President Prout, but I was just going to say, just looking at the piece of, I was happy to hear that it's for physical education, because I know, if this was put in other areas, in other classrooms, our teachers are trying to get through all the other instructional that they're trying to work through the day. So I think that it's a great way to provide this in a physical education class. So I was really happy to hear that, and then we're not putting more work on our teachers. So that was another good point. But yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, great. Moving on to 8.2, we have a first read of policy section IKF. Dr. Hernandez.
Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the board. This evening's first read of policy IKF highlights an update to the language respective to ARS 15-710. The district's course offerings are currently in compliance with the updated language specific to 1 year of instruction in state and federal constitutions, American institutions and ideals, and the history of Native Americans is included in Arizona history. As a reminder, the Peoria Unified High Schools utilize a block schedule model that accelerates and condenses content year-long into semesters. So I am available to answer any questions should you have any.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments about this first read? No?
I guess, so which one was it that, how does that work into, I see physical education, so I don't know if that's the one that you were speaking to.
That would be where it is, and I can get the actual course name that students could take.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I do not have any questions or comments at this time. Moving on to 8.3, discussion and review of policy GCQC, resignation of professional staff members, and the liquidated damages clause. We're going to turn the time over to Ms. Vesley.
Thank you, President Proudfit, members of the board. Tonight, for discussion, we are bringing forward the opportunity to have deep discussion about Governing Board Policy GCQC, the resignation of professional staff and liquidated damages clause. So as we've been hearing the last few weeks, there's been discussion on liquidated damages, and there was an appeal that came forward where you, the board, asked to have deeper discussion on whether or not we should continue to have liquidated damages, maybe review policy, and to bring some data back to you. So tonight we're going to focus in a little bit on the law. I'm bringing some data forward for you for consideration, and then we'll look at some different options, and then we'll turn it over for discussion, and I would be looking forward to hearing options and different thoughts that you might have as we look forward to the possible changes in this policy. This is Arizona Revised Statutes 15.545 that talks about resignation, the restrictions, and where it is considered an unprofessional act in the state of Arizona. A certificated teacher shall not resign after signing and returning his contract unless the resignation is first approved by the governing board. A teacher who resigns contrary to this section shall be deemed to commit an unprofessional act, and upon request of the governing board shall be subject to such disciplinary action, including suspension or revocation of certificate as the State Board of Education deems appropriate. So, many ways that districts may look to help keep teachers and or administrators from breaking contract and it being seen as an unprofessional conduct has been to possibly look at assessing liquidated damages. And so this is just the law that supports and shows that it is considered an unprofessional act in the state of Arizona. There are some districts that do not have liquidated damages in their policy, but if there was a certificated staff member that broke their contract, then the school district could turn them into the Department of Education and report it as an unprofessional conduct. And then the State Board of Education's investigative unit would investigate. They could censure, they could provide disciplinary action up to and including revocation of certification. So as I briefly discussed, that there are some districts that assess liquidated damages as a measure to allow individuals to leave a district without reporting the individual to the Arizona Department of Education. It's also been used as a tool to get staff members to think or maybe to make decisions before they sign their contract, and a way to help ensure that we may not have as many people leaving throughout the school year. Because as we know, once the school year starts, it is difficult to find a teacher. And there have been times where we've had classrooms that have gone all year without having a teacher in the classroom. And again, districts have this language built into their contracts as well for both administrators and professional certified staff. So this includes for us teachers, counselors, anyone certified, social workers, behavior interventionist. And then those districts, again, that do not assess the liquidated damages, they do report or can report these individuals to the Arizona Department of Education for unprofessional conduct. There are some districts as well that if the individual leaves their position before board approval, that is considered job abandonment, and those districts also report those individuals to the Department of Education. So here's a little bit of history that I found. As far back as 2012, Peoria Unified has been assessing liquidated damages. And back in 2012, we found that governing board policy allowed for external promotions to be waived. Then in 2014, the governing board had conversations regarding waiving liquidated damages for external promotions. And then in November of 2014, there was a first read where policy removed waiving liquidated damages for external promotions outside of the district. And then in December of that same year, board policy was approved, removing language regarding the external promotions. So this policy, since that time, has been reviewed multiple times as concerns have come forward to the board or as appeals have come forward, both from certified staff members and administrators. And since 2017, I found at least 3 or 4 times where the governing board requested a discussion, requested maybe to think about options, and has not moved forward with changing this policy since 2012. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information as to the number of staff members, certified and or administrators that have a termination in our vision system. So a termination can be either a resignation or a retirement. So from July 1 of 2023 through today, June 30th of, we're not at June 30th, but the data that we have as up to this point, we had a total of 348 terminations of both administrators and professional staff. And again, it could be a retirement, a resignation, or a did not sign contract. So out of those 348 terminations in our vision system, 153 of them were not applicable because those individuals did not sign their contract, and therefore there is no reason to charge liquidated damages. They simply did not sign their contract, and then we got a resignation or a retirement form from that individual. We did waive 151, and so in current policy, we have the opportunity to waive for multiple reasons. One is retirement, another one is moving out of county and state, verified medical reason, and there is also a language in there for administrative recommendations. So out of those 151, you can see the breakdown there. 27 were administrative recommendations. That could mean anything such as maybe a person was on an improvement plan and they weren't being successful. They chose to resign, and we would waive for that reason. Or there could be an individual that maybe is under investigation or for allegations of unprofessional conduct. That person is choosing to resign their position. You can see 19 medical. We do get verified medical reasons that go through our benefits department. There are times where individuals may not be able to return and are not released to come back from an FMLA, and or there are documented reasons where if a person goes to a medical provider and they provide documentation that states they're currently being seen or treated, and it is in the professional opinion of that medical provider that they not continue in the capacity that they are currently working, we would waive for those reasons. And then those verified medical reasons are kept in that employee's benefit file. You can see 86 were for retirement, so we do not charge liquidated damages when an individual is retiring from Peoria Unified and starting to receive a pension through the Arizona State Retirement System. And then we see a few that have been deceased, moved out of state, and or it was their end of their contract. 33 were not waived. And so these would be examples of someone that signed their contract and is maybe going to get a job at a university. We have many times where it could be a teacher that's going to work for a university, or they have found a job outside of education where policy does not allow administration and or the board to waive liquidated damages. There have been a few as well that had a promotion into an administrative position in another school district, and current policy, as is written, does not allow the board to waive for that reason. And I believe that's where one of our appeals have come this year. Many times the appeals that we see will be from certified staff that are getting promoted, whether it's in this district or in another district, into an administrative role. We see also some appeals that come forward to the board for financial reasons. There could be a medical reason or something that has happened in the family unit that no longer allows for that opportunity of that individual to stay working in their position. And then not waived are just 11 that are pending. So we think about those that were brought forward last board meeting, those that were brought forward today, and we also had a few that showed up, I don't want to say showed up, but they came into our email today of people that are suddenly resigning that would not meet the current criteria where we would be obligated to charge the liquidated damages. So what I wanted to do this evening is to provide just some opportunities to open up discussion so that we could hear some of your thoughts and possibly bring back some first reads at the next board meeting. These options are certainly not the only options, but as I went back and reviewed the multiple times that governing board has asked for a discussion, these were some of the areas that we've seen in the past, and I think I was trying to capture, based off of some of the conversations that I heard at the last board meeting, some different thoughts. And so one of the policies that I provided tonight is keeping the liquidated damages language and policy as written currently and as it is currently observed. Another option may be to modify language to allow for external promotions for administrative positions. And another option may be that you may want to consider removing all liquidated damages language from policy GCQC. I wanted to also share that I did reach out to several districts to find out whether or not in their current policy are they charging liquidated damages. So I heard back from Mesa. Mesa currently does not have liquidated damages in their policy. Paradise Valley does not have a liquidated damages clause. Deer Valley does have liquidated damages. This is new. They started and created this policy last year as a result of many people leaving throughout the year. And then I know that in the past, Dysart has had liquidated damages. They used to, and I'm not sure if they still do this or not, but they used to have a time frame of once you signed your contract, usually you sign your contract into February or going into March, that there was a time frame, maybe March 30th, April 15th, or April 30th, where they would then allow people out of their contracts. But then once a certain date passed, they started to charge. It could have been maybe around May 1st, and then they would charge after that. So there's a lot of different ways that every board looks at the number of people that are leaving and whether or not liquidated damages has an impact to at least maybe try to think and have that conversation with the individual before they actually make that decision to break contract. So with that information, I did provide policy. If you would like that we pull up the policies just for review, we're happy to do that. Or I would gladly open it up for discussion and then just possible thoughts and ideas that you would like to possibly have us bring forward as a first read at a next governing board meeting.
Yes, we have a few. Thank you very much. And we actually have a few public comments tied to this. We'll start with Charmel. Thank you for being patient.
Good evening, President Proudfit, Board, Dr. Summers, Cabinet, and guest. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Wow, what can I say? A big decision going on here that affect the lives of a lot of people. I want to preface everything by saying that in my 25 years of teaching that this was the first time I'd ever heard of this, and when I came to California, to Arizona, and I taught in 5 different states. Never had I heard this terminology. I would also like to say that, and I really feel like because it's tied to this liquidation of damages, the educational law 15-545, I think it's a horrible law. Teachers that break their contracts, even though it's a very serious thing to break a contract for whatever reason, they are not criminals. And I think that the way the law is stated is that it's harsh and these teachers don't deserve that kind to be suspended or to have their certification revoked. So I would encourage Dr. Summers, you with your professional organization and the board with their organization, and I know the rep is here for the teachers. I would encourage all 3 of you to please bring this forward to your organizations because Arizona has a hard enough time attracting teachers. This certainly doesn't endear anybody to want to come and teach in this state. But getting down to the specifics, I would like to just address and kind of confine my comments to teachers who resigned during the summertime or toward the end of the school year. There's a big timing issue here because they're made to sign a contract if they want to come back so early before the present school year ends. And then their contract doesn't start until probably around the 1st of August or so. So they have all that time in there, and things happen, and I think part of your policy is pretty good, but you have a time element here, and my time's running out already, and I wanted to say so much. So let me conclude by saying that if you were going to change the policy, if you're going to do liquidation of damages, I would confine it to teachers who resign or who quit during the middle of the year and not when they have to sign their new contract at the end of the year to come back. And if they do, that you give them a grace period, and I think that was brought up in the report, that they have a grace period once they sign that contract, that they can opt out of it, but once that date passes, then if you want to assign liquidation of damages, that you can. Well, I'll stop. I only have 7 more seconds, so thank you, and I'll be praying that you make a good decision because this has been batted around back and forth for a lot of times. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another public comment from Ms. Trina Berg.
Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers, Cabinet. My name is Trina Berg. I'm president of the Peoria Education Association, and I actually have a very long history of trying to get rid of liquidated damages in this district. I managed to get them reduced from $2,500 to $1,500 quite a few years ago. We did get it to the board again, and it failed on a 2-2 tied with one of our board members abstaining at the time to get rid of them completely. I do appreciate the fact that there you are. That you said that there was multiple options because the 3 that were on the list are definitely not it. I've gotten feedback from lots of different presidents around, and we have everything in the state from no liquidated damages to $2,000 to dates because we do have to sign our contracts so early, and because we're all competing, we're getting earlier and earlier and earlier. So there's lots of districts now. If you want a list, I can give them to you. At least the feedback that I have. There are some that have a leeway to a certain date, and then it goes to say $500, and then it goes to $1,000, and then once the school year starts, it's the $1,500 or whatever their district has. There are some districts that have opportunity if your spouse moves jobs more than 50 miles away. You have the option of breaking your contract because that usually entails moving. That's a really long distance to be driving. There's all kinds of different options out there. We have options of the promotions. I know that's part of the catalyst of what brought this back up again. I do have to say that it's been a while since this has been discussed, and I'm glad that we have a board that is willing to discuss this again, because this is absolutely something that, yes, I understand wanting to keep people on the job because not having a classroom teacher is a tremendous burden on the rest of us that are there. But we do have to sign our contracts very early, and right now I'm not even technically on contract. I don't have a job. I mean, I do waiting for me, but like I'm not here right now. And so if I found something different, I'm not, but if I found something different, now would be the time I'd want to move, and this would be the time to do it. There are some districts also that have a caveat that if you find a replacement within a certain amount of time, you don't have liquidated damages, which is another possible option that you guys can discuss. So first, I do appreciate the fact that this is a discussion item again. I do encourage you to make changes to this policy because this policy is not really what is best for us employees. It is what's best for the district. But as a teacher, $1,500 is like a whole paycheck, more than a paycheck for some of us. And it's a tremendous amount of money, and it is, you know, it doesn't make people want to stay. But also, if you're a teacher and you don't want to be in your job anymore, you're not going to be a very good teacher from that point on. Thank you.
Thank you. If it's okay with everybody, I wanted to start. I really, really have a hard time with this policy. I actually am in support of totally doing away with liquidated damages. I feel like it's not really speaking highly to our culture. If we have teachers that are leaving mid-year, then we need to dig in deeper to why that's happening. And I think that this policy, like you were saying, the money is really not doing anything for the district. It's what, with the 11, it would be, you know, under $100,000. But to a teacher, that's a lot of money. And I don't like the feeling of this. I don't like the feeling it speaks to that we don't believe in our culture, that we do believe this is going to be a problem. And I think that as we work to gather the data to find out why these things are happening, there's already pretty strong punishment for people that truly do abandon their jobs. And when it falls under that criteria, I feel like it could be handled by the State Board of Education. But yeah, as a business owner, I would never put a policy in place that assumed that our employees would not enjoy working for us or would not want to stay. And I would hope that the culture that we're creating would create an environment where this wouldn't be a problem. And so, like I said, I'm actually in support of doing away with this as an act of good faith in what we believe about our district, but also about our teachers within the district. I did like your comment about, it's hard too because we want what's best for our teachers, and if going to another district that pays them more money, I can't begrudge people that. So as we work as hard as we can to make our district the most competitive pay-wise and in every single way, I don't know, just penalizing people for doing what's best for their families feels icky to me. I did like the suggestion Trina gave about having a sliding scale if you need more time with your contract, and I would maybe be open to something like that. But honestly, I think we all believe in Peoria enough to not need this and to work on the things on a district level. That's what I think. Melissa?
Thank you. I've got a whole bunch of questions and a little bit of information because I did do some gatherings from some other districts as well. So first off, just to answer some of the pieces of what President Proudfit was recommending, I just want to make sure that we're considering, because of your PowerPoint presentation, if we get rid of liquidated damages altogether, and I would be curious to actually talk to Mesa and find out what they do in Paradise Valley, does that require us to then, each person that leaves before their contract is up, that we are reporting them to the Department of Education, and then they make their own assessment? Because it seems like the liquidated damages came into play as a way of, if you will, almost a short-term consequence versus a long-term affecting their certification. So I just want to make sure that we understand that process. So I thought maybe you could speak to that. So if you can answer that question, then I'll go on with my other questions.
I think within the law, if I'm reading the law says that the governing board has to approve the resignations. And so it doesn't state that we do have to turn. It is an unprofessional conduct if you leave and break contract. But I think the way I was reading it is that it states board has to approve the resignation. I think it could be those where there's that job abandonment where I'm up and I'm gone. I'd have to dig in a little bit more with Mesa to see what they do. I know Deer Valley, prior to them having the liquidated damages, they did turn individuals in to the Department of Education when they broke contract.
Okay, and so just, sorry. So when it comes to the board having to approve that, is that going to kind of change the process that we had? I don't want to create a process that cumbers and that every time somebody is leaving, we have to know the reason why and before we can approve it, because then that makes that process cumbersome. So I want to understand that piece too. Does that make sense on the question I was asking? So if we got rid of liquidated damages, which would mean the board would have to approve all resignations, would it still follow the same the procedure we do now where the names are provided and then we approve that? Or do the reasons have to be included in order for the board to, because then that creates a cumbersome process?
I believe if the board was choosing to remove liquidated damages, that you would approve those resignations. We would be bringing forward maybe those individuals that there may be concerns if there was job abandonment. We have had a job abandonment in the past where someone leaves their keys on their desk that night, has no conversation with an administrator, and they don't show up the next day. That's a huge concern. So I believe we would have that opportunity to have those discussions. In my opinion, if you were going to waive, but you have approved that resignation, I don't believe that would be considered unprofessional conduct if I'm reading the law correctly.
And are you asking if there's like mandated reporting? Correct. Yeah, so it's not mandated reporting, it's just optional if there is truly job abandonment. There's 1,000,001 reasons why a teacher would leave. But yeah, yes. That's my understanding, is that we don't have to. It's just if we felt like
that's what I was reading. I was going to read in the law. It just says a teacher who resigns contrary to this section shall be deemed to commit an unprofessional act, and upon the request of the governing board shall be subject to such disciplinary action, including suspension, revocation of certificate and the State Board of Ed deems appropriate. So I think it's also in the language that the governing board could request when they vote for that piece. They can request for administration to follow up with the State Board of Ed or any other type. That's just what I'm reading in the 15-545.
So that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. I think that would be something, because this is discussion that we would, if we can check with our legal, just confirm that, just to make sure, because that could, that's a factor to consider in that decision. And then the other thing that in terms of whether we do, if we're just adding language or if we're getting rid of the liquidated damages whatsoever, I know that in every decision we make as a board, it has to be student-centered. So there is that, how does that affect the student when you have a teacher that leaves? And I think it's a very different conversation about if they're leaving during the summer versus leaving during the school year. And then we get into what are their reasons, if it's the death of a family member or some sort of tragedy, that's understandable. But when you have somebody who is leaving their contract and it's creating a detriment to our students, that we have to consider that as well. And yes, we can put programming in place and staffing models in place to keep our staff and make it a great work environment, but we also have to be thinking about how do we limit any sort of damage it would come to our students and their learning should that teacher leave during the school year. I know that I was reading that Tempe, their dates that they use, because they have kind of a graduated, if you will, is that if they, it's like, I think $500 if the teacher vacates their contract from April 1st or whatever is the signing date to June 1st, and then they move up and it's $1,000 if the teacher vacates their contract June 2nd until the contract reporting date, which I think for ours is typically that July date. And then the full amount, $1,500, if the teacher vacates his or her position once contract reporting date has passed and through the end of the contract term. So that's something that they do. And then you could still also have those additional language added in terms of the reasoning for the liquidated damages to be waived. I did note, just so other people know, what, like Apache Junction, they have that the board delegates the superintendent the ability to grant a waiver of liquidated damages. They list out some circumstances. One of them I think is a great one on there is other exceptional good cause reasons as determined by the superintendent, because oftentimes there's tragedies and traumas that happen that it's difficult to be up here to list out all of the possible items. So I think if there is a way to have a conversation about how this is affecting our students when we have resignation, because it almost feels like there's two different things. There's summer, right? And then there's resignations during the school year and how that impacts the students. And then also how it impacts our teachers' certification. So there's those. So
I just wanted to bring up too, I thought what Trina said was important in regards to that, having it be student-centered, which you're absolutely right. It always has to come back to the students in the classroom. If we have a teacher situation or a staff situation where it is going to kind of fall under that mid-year abandonment situation, or someone is really so done or in such a situation for whatever reason that they don't feel that they can continue, you probably, I don't know that I would want that person teaching in a classroom anymore. You know what I mean? Is having someone there who doesn't want to be there, that's a whole other level of how it could potentially affect students.
I had a question because I'm pretty tired today. Sorry. The contract date to be signed, I know Trina brought it up, but what is the actual date again, if you know off the top of your head?
President Proudfit, Mrs. Rooks, members of the board, that changes every year. We did, I think we brought them back the first week of March this year. Usually it's around the beginning of March, and then they're usually due in just before spring break. Administrators go out the first week of March, and they have 30 days to sign. Certified staff members have 15 business days, so it's, you know, a weekend here or there. Administrators have a little bit longer time. So we're getting them back either just before spring break or right after spring break, about the third week of March.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. Yeah, I do kind of agree with the discussion of in the middle of the school year when they do leave their contract, that does mess up with the students. It's happened to my kids, so that's kind of a downer. And then they have to go through trying to find someone, and it's just, I think that is a mess. But I do think that it does need to be addressed on this point of, I really liked the Dysart example of, and I don't know if Trina said this too, but of the, when they have to sign their contract, they get an extension. I think we had a community member bring it up as well. I think that if we give them a little bit more time to get their options, because they also are trying to figure out everything that's going on surrounding them. I definitely think that I do like the language in here of if they're being promoted in a different district. I think that that's important, because we don't want to tell that person, well, sorry, no, we're going to make you pay a damage for somebody who wants to go further up in their career. I think that that's kind of wrong. I also just think that it's a wrong message if we are, or the district is not wanting somebody to come back. I think you brought that up, Ms. Vesley. If it's determined that it's their review and that should not come back, and so that they submit a resignation, I just think that sends the wrong message that we're not doing liquidated damages with them, because they're supposed to be fulfilling their contract and working through what they're supposed to be doing with their reviews. And I just think that that's the wrong message too, to send to the teachers that do leave. Like, it's kind of like, well, you did great, but we're just gonna make you pay the fee, versus, well, you weren't following what you were supposed to be doing in your contract, so we want you to resign. We're not gonna make you pay for any of it. And that seems backwards to me. But I like I said, I do like the example of having I guess what Dysart has, which is a contract date, extending it through the summer. I don't like it if we're taking away the liquidated damages during the school year, just because that does mess up the kids a lot. So I don't want it to affect the kids. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to focus on. But I do agree it needs to be updated a little bit. So yeah, that was just what I was going to speak to. Sorry, went on.
President Proudfit.
Sorry, and I skipped you, Sandoval. I'm sorry.
Great conversation. Yeah. So I guess very quickly, I mean, it's this is a policy that you know, I've certainly been in support of getting rid of, because I do believe that the district should lean on, you know, fostering a culture of supportive, inspiring, you know, work environments for all of our associates. That said, one of the public commenters brought up the reduction in the damages. So, I mean, you know, well, I supported, you know, getting rid of the policy. I was able to move and work with the governing board at that time to lessen, you know, those damages, which I think was a step in the right direction. So one of the things for me is I've always stated that it would be great to either get rid of or ensure that this policy is not taken as a punitive measure, right? More of one that does support our teachers and staff and our students in the classroom, right? That's been brought up a few times. You know, how we do that, you know, again, is, like I said before, I mean, you know, we've talked about it many times, I brought it up, is just, ensuring that every associate, when they come into work, they do have an opportunity to be fulfilled, every day within their workplace and supported, right? And feeling that level of support, valued and respected. I read through some of the policies that other districts have. I don't want to be too repetitive, but I know some of the public commenters brought up a tiered approach, once they sign their contract, because, and maybe it's from that signing date, right, to June 1, whether it's zero assessment or, we reduce it by half, and then June 1 to July 1, it goes up a little bit, and July 1, then it's, full, full assessment. But I've got to believe that it is more of an expense, more of a hardship for somebody to lose, a teacher who's been in the industry for many, many years, to potentially lose their license or have that revoked or their certifications. That would be horrible, right? So when I think about that and that potential, decision, if an individual does decide to, break their contract mid-year, one, I've got to believe that that's, again, something on the top of the head more than, at $1,500 at the teacher level. But teachers get into this industry. I've always said this, they're special individuals, and they'll, what they do every day. I don't think any one of them, would want to just leave their classroom and leave their students in a adverse situation, or their peers for that matter. I'm open to a couple things. One is absolutely taking a look at that tiered approach, right? So from the day they sign the contract, what I just went over, I'm also open to really continuing to just charge the district to continue to grow and like I said, create those inspiring work environments for all of our associates, which means that I don't believe that this policy, one, aligns with that, and two, I don't believe that we would need it if that's a sentiment and the feeling that our associates feel on a daily basis. One of the things that I've talked about in the past, and those of you who have been here for a while, is even, how we look at the district office and renaming it for the District Support Center versus, the District Administrative Center, or DAC, right? So that said, I know that's beside the point. My ask is this, that as we go through this process and realize input from the board, I know you're getting some now, I would love for the team to also be really, really intentional about garnering input from, our teachers at PEA to take a look at this policy and how to provide that input, right? So what I don't want to happen is that, we approach these individuals with something that's already established and say, we want your feedback. It's a little different than input, right? So I definitely want to make sure that those lenses are included, in this conversation. So that's that, right? The damages as a whole. But as we take a look at line items where we can potentially waive those damages, I would like to go back to external promotions, right? Because I think we need to be proud of and celebrate individuals who have gone through our halls, our walls, our professional development, and now have an opportunity that may not exist in Peoria Unified, but it does in another district. So whether they're here or in another district, they're still lifting up and inspiring students, right, our young scholars. So, I would love to see that, added back into the policy. And it was also brought up around the mileage factor. I mean, Maricopa County is the 4th largest county in our nation. I mean, so if you lived outside of Maricopa County, east or west, I mean, that's a lot of travel time, and if you had to make that decision to now live, that far away from the district due to your spouse, getting another job, whatever the reason is, I think versus, having language around outside of the county, outside of the state, of course, I would like to see something that's more outside of a certain mile radius, if you will, from the district. I don't know what that is, and I don't know what thoughts we would have to determine what that looks like, but, I would like to consider that as well. So, again, all for compromise and taking a tiered approach, but those are two items that I would like to add as far as why we would actually waive the damages. So that's where I sit. Thank you.
I was just going to add two things when, if you're taking recommendations, if maybe involving also our principals in that discussion, because I know that they're the ones that have to go and hire those positions that do leave throughout the year. So maybe having some feedback from them and asking them what that would look like. Would they like a tiered approach? Guess I just would like to hear the principals' perspectives on that as well. And then, obviously our teachers in the district. And then I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I would like to know, I'm watching Dr. Summers over there. So I just wanted to see if maybe you had an opinion on it or thoughts. I don't know if that's appropriate to ask. Are you okay, Ms. Besley? I'm sorry.
My water, excuse me.
kept
I
rambling.
apologize. I'm
sorry.
not turning my back on you.
No, it's okay.
Maybe I can take an opportunity so Ms. Vesely can have
Yes,
a
let her
moment.
drink some water.
I appreciate the question, Mrs. Rooks. I think just a couple quick things, and you guys are really touching on all the key points. This is new to me as well. Colorado, I am, number one, I don't believe there is any statute that is designed in this way. I do know that there were, on a rare occasion, situations that we did have to report to our state board, but that was not a function of somebody breaking their contract. I think even the terminology itself just has this very insensitive feel. The reality of the teaching profession is that the vast majority, I dare say all, of our educators who feel called to this profession, number one, they're not coming into it for the money. We know that. And number two, the dynamics that are part of a job market right now that is extremely complex and creates some very difficult life decisions is such that I've not met an educator who doesn't have a very difficult time coming to terms with whatever their decision may be. I don't believe that the assessment of liquidated damages is often the driver for that decision. I think it's if the goal is really around taking somebody down a road where they're not wanting to resign as a result of having liquidated damages assessed, I just don't know that there would be too many educators that would say that that's deterring them from making that decision. So I appreciate the thinking. I do think to the degree that we can gather some input, we should. The summer makes it a little bit challenging in that space, but I don't think there's anything wrong with us getting something out in the way of a survey and just getting a pulse check from both administrators as well as from our teachers. Certainly, and as you all know, we're already still in a position where we have hiring that we're trying to conduct as we go through the summer. So this is the right conversation to have. It also gets to a bigger why for me in reference to why work in Peoria Unified, right? And what can we offer and what can be most inspirational, to use some terminology you use, Mr. Sandoval, and motivational. And I think those are, that's a multifaceted approach. That's not just removing a policy such as this one. That's really understanding a number of the environmental factors that are going into the decision of folks to be part of our team. So all that said, I would, if you were asking me where on the continuum am I? I'm more on the continuum of I don't believe this is the right type of policy. I do understand that there are times when we're in a situation where we may have to really have some parameters and criteria that we use to make a determination, and that would likely give us, you know, some element of where does it make sense. But in most cases, I just don't believe it's necessarily serving the greater good. And certainly when we talk about the greater good, it has to come back to what is best for our students. But there's a number of variables that go well beyond just this policy as to is it really making a difference one way or another. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit of context.
Yes, it does. And then it just made me have a question popped into my brain. So sorry.
Sure. Yeah,
Again,
that's
hopefully,
great.
Ms. Wesley, you're okay. With regards to when the position, if somebody does leave, like let's say in the middle of the year with their contract, what does that look like for, I guess, cost, right? Having to fill that position and going through the interview process to find a position. Is there a cost related? What does that kind of look like?
I think it would be hard to determine a cost because you have your administrators that have to spend the time to review applicants. We have the HR department who has to post that position. They will gather a team together to interview, so they'll go through and screen. Principals will interview at the school site, and then they make a recommendation, and then the HR team will start to come up with salaries and the calls. That process can take multiple weeks, and then you could run into the concern of not having available teachers as well. And so there's the cost of the HR side, your administrators who are having to take the time to go through the applicants, hiring again, interviewing again. And then there's the side of can we find a long-term sub? We can go. That is a cost to the district as well. But if you have a teacher leaving, that you're not paying that person any longer anyhow. So there's multiple factors that go into play. When you really look at the data, the number of people, as you said, Mrs. Proudfit, that we are charging was not that many because many of the people, what we try to do in human resources is try to look and understand what's the reason that someone is leaving. We try as hard as we can, does it fit into any of these four? If I'm hearing medical concerns, we're having that conversation with benefits and really trying to better understand. I don't like to charge liquidated damages. It's not a fun conversation to have. And we're really right now at the point where people are saying, I don't care, charge me. It's not deterring them like it used to in the past. So I'm hoping I'm answering those questions. I also did want to go back to the Department of Education. There are so many different investigations that they become involved in that are mandatory reporting. Mandatory reporting are crimes against children, sexual crimes against children, severe unprofessional conduct that we would immediately report those individuals to the Department of Ed. So in the past, the investigative unit has shared with us that if we are charging liquidated damages, I don't turn them in as an act of unprofessional conduct because that is a consequence in and of itself. They have so many other investigations that need to take their full attention and time to sort through and investigate that I believe those people that might be turned in are going to be down at the bottom of the list, and they're going to rise those unprofessional acts as their top priority.
I have one question. How successful are we in actually collecting liquidated damages in the severe cases of abandonment? Is that like, I mean, we don't really have a collections department, so do we always collect when we're talking about probably those few and far between cases of true abandonment? How successful are we?
We take it out of their last checks, and so we are very successful up until final checks. And I hear probably Trina's laughing right now because their final payout was just this past week. And so we're at the point, even with those from May 29th and tonight, where our staff members have been paid out their final paychecks, our certified staff. We do have performance pay, so then that next step is we're going to take it out of performance pay. But after that, it becomes very difficult. And so it is human resources making the call. I need you to give me a check. And we are not collection agencies. We do not have the manpower to go and collect. So that's why, again, the action item tonight helps us to put a pause so that we can reflect and really think about what's best for our staff members.
Well, and I think to your point, you know, as an HR director looking at, okay, how does this fit into the current policy? We just need to make sure that our policy, either totally doing away with this or seriously making some modifications, supports you in being able to dig deep to get to the reason of why and be as compassionate and sensitive as possible to our employees.
And I think I liked the part of more modifying it because of what you just talked about. If we take away the liquidated damages, we would have to submit that to the Department of Ed of that individual, and then they're having to sit and wait for theirs to be investigated. Like, I don't think that's a good idea either. I think that if we get rid of liquidated damages, that's the road that the other option. I think that's not a good option.
So you know we don't have to do that though. Like say like it's really at our discretion. We could report no one to the State Department. Like we don't have to do that. That's just an option that's available to us should we choose to go down that road. So it's not like if we take away liquidated damages, then the other option is we have to report them. I mean, we can still report them even with liquidated damages. It's not like.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you said that the Department of Ed had said if you keep the liquidated damages, that's a consequence. So then it's not, you don't have to report. That's what I thought I heard you say. So I'm sorry.
No, thank you, Mrs. Rooks, for the clarification. Peoria Unified does not turn individuals in because we currently have the liquidated damages clause. I believe that the investigative unit through the Arizona Department of Education has so many other deeper, more troubling investigations that they have to get through. I think we have that judgment to turn and report people for unprofessional conduct. They have shared that in law it is unprofessional conduct. They have shared we may report, they may provide discipline. It could be a written, verbal that, and then on the second occurrence that their certificate could be revoked or suspended. There are times where you see an individual that might go from district to district to district that for whatever reason leaves mid-year. So it really is up to the district. I think there are bigger things, and there are, I believe, only 5 or 6 investigators through the Department of Ed. And so they had over, I want to say last year, over 700, 750 other investigations. So I believe that those would fall to the bottom of what's most important for them to get
Okay.
through.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I just want to kind of put in summary of all the stuff I'm hearing that maybe we can drive us to.
Direction, yeah.
So
That's great.
So I'm hearing that we're talking about a lot of what-if scenarios. It would be great if, when this is brought back, if we could, or in a Friday report, if we could have if you have conversations with those districts who have gone away with it altogether and how they handle scenarios of job abandonment, because my head also, I start to think about, well, maybe we need to have something written in there about job abandonment and that there be damages written in. So I'd be curious on those districts that have gotten rid of it, especially the larger districts, how they handle those things. So that would be one piece to bring back to us. The other thing that I think would be good to have the information is if those districts are having to make the decision of whether to report or not to report, then you can, if you don't have a policy around when you report to ADE or that type of thing, then it could be, from a legal perspective, it could be seen as bias. So I would want that question answered by our counsel if we were to get rid of that, how would those things be handled? And would there be a recommended direction to put in policies so that we can say, yes, it fits this, and that we're reporting under, certainly if there's a crime, and, that's certain, there's cases that it's obvious, but there also might be cases that it's, I just don't want to see the district be liable for anything in that piece. And then I think it would be, and then I'm also hearing that folks would like to see, David, thank you for the right language, the tiered approach, and what that would look like. Bringing it back to, these are some options, and then the added criteria or the language of the promotion to outside another district, mileage, those types of things. And then I also had a question of like, okay, so it would be really hard for us to take away the waive all liquidated damages and take this away and then come back with a tiered approach in all of these conditions. That would be really difficult. If we did a graduated step where we went down to a tiered approach, maybe some added language, more freedom and flexibility to the superintendent to be able to make some more, and added that June, July timeframe in there. If we created something like that, so that would allow us time to get the feedback. Is it a board committee? Is it a superintendent committee that's put together to get feedback to decide what's appropriate? And then also we can be getting feedback from our those other districts who have that during that time frame. So those are just some, I think, options and directions of where we could go with these things. And then also, if we went to a graduated, if we change it instead of taking it all away, then I would also want to have something in there where we're bringing it back to the board to evaluate how effective has this been, has it changed anything, and do we need to add or take away some additional things. And that could be all part of having a committee if we feel like that piece is needed. So I don't know if that made that answer more complicated or if that felt like that captured everybody's input.
Especially the legal, because I would like to have like the legal aspect, because if it's in statute that it is unprofessional conduct and we don't report it, like I just want legal clarification on that so that the district and the board is not held liable, because we are supposed to do, that. We're supposed to make sure that we let know any type of unprofessional conduct if that's what's written in statute. So maybe just getting legal advice from district attorney, board attorney. Yeah, I like that part.
And then the only thing I'll add is, for me, everything that Ms. Ewing said, yes, that felt very comprehensive. I would love to see something brought forward that changes the verbiage from liquidated damages to a specific policy about abandonment of your position, because I think that is really what we're getting to the heart of. Is like, that's the problem when that happens. And so how to bring this forward when that is the case, and because I understand that essentially by delaying this, we're losing the ability to take liquidated damages from the people those 11 that we've put on hold. But anyway, so that is my input. Is there anything else? Do you feel like you have what you need? Yes?
Yes.
More than you need? It's a shame we're not thorough in any way. Well, thank you very much for that very robust discussion. All right, we're going to move on to section 9.1, which is our public comment. Our first public comment is from Ms. Ray Connolly.
Good evening, President Proudfit, governing board members, Dr. Summers, and cabinet. I've been an educator in Peoria Unified for 29 years and an advocate for students, staff, and administrators. I'm speaking on behalf of the Peoria Principals Association, of which I have been a part of for over 20 years. Our membership has concerns about the administrative leave process. One of our veteran colleagues of 26 years has been on administrative leave since April 15th, leaving her school and community without her leadership through the end of the school year and in the midst of trauma. Principals are now feeling vulnerable and are concerned that Peoria Unified does not have standard operating procedures in place for administrators on leave, including what constitutes administrative leave, paid or unpaid, length of time, and supports for the person on leave. When administrators are made aware of allegations towards staff or students on their campuses, district policies and procedures are to be followed. The district should ensure that protections and due process are in place. If the district believes in an abundance of caution is needed to conduct a thorough investigation, administrative leave can be exercised by the district and should be consistent with all involved. Although administrative leave is not intended to be a disciplinary action, once someone is placed on leave, the assumption by the public is often one of guilt, especially the longer the leave continues. There are no standard operating procedures that define a timeline for HR to follow as they conduct an internal investigation. In this case, 2 months have passed and no resolution has been made. In the initial communication to the PHS community, it was stated, and I quote, "Our district office team is putting together a plan to have additional administrators on site," close quote. In the April 25th governing board agenda, the administrator assigned to provide this additional support was given supplemental pay from April 23rd through June 30th. This appears to be lengthy and predetermined timeline. Peoria Unified emphasizes that all staff should feel valued and known. This should include supporting staff on leave as they are isolated from the school community as well as from all district employees. This results in the person feeling unvalued and unsupported. Besides 3 free counseling sessions through the Employee Assistance Program, no other supports are in place. Again, all of this occurs during a time period that is lengthy, apparently predetermined, and not regarded as disciplinary. We fear the level of depression and isolation of such a long period of time may lead to serious mental health issues. The board is responsible for the safety and well-being of all students and staff and needs to review this process. Without standard operating procedures, we are falling short in supporting those involved when administrative leave is exercised. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment does not have a name on it, but I think it is Mr. Jeff Tobey's handwriting. No? Okay, if someone gave public comment and I don't call you, we have one without a name. Our next public comment will be Janelle Bowles.
Good evening. I thought it was I was the mystery public comment. I'm here to address Title IX. Again, August 1st is the effective date for this new regulation. There was a headline that read today, Attorney General Ken Paxton secures major win blocking Biden administration attempt to force Title IX policies into schools, securing nationwide relief against unlawful agency actions. Unfortunately, this injunction only affects Texas. The headline was misleading. And unfortunately, we don't have a governor or a attorney general that is going to sue the Biden administration for this. So I'm once again bringing to the board that your community is asking that you sue the Biden administration and block Title IX. We have only until August 1st to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Ashley Arcuri.
Good evening. President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Subbers, cabinet, and guests. My name is Ashley Alcori. I'm here to speak about an extraordinary leader in our educational system, Mrs. Landa Tartaglio. I had the privilege of working with Landa as my administrator at Kachina, completing my administrative internship under her guidance, and collaborating with her during my tenure as an administrator here in Peoria. As a principal, she exemplifies excellence through her unwavering commitment to her students, staff, and the broader school community. She leads by example, consistently demonstrating integrity, dedication, and a relentless pursuit of educational excellence. Landa's adherence to protocol and her methodical by-the-book approach are foundational to her success. She is meticulously organized, ensuring that every aspect of school operations runs smoothly and efficiently. This attention to detail not only fosters a stable learning environment, but also sets a high standard for staff and students alike. Throughout her 26-year career here in Peoria, Landa has transformed multiple underperforming schools into thriving centers of learning. Her strategic vision and hands-on leadership have revitalized these schools, creating environments where students can excel both academically and personally. Her efforts have consistently resulted in improved test scores and a renewed sense of pride within the school community. Moreover, Landa has been instrumental in inspiring many teachers to pursue administrative roles themselves. Her leadership has created a ripple effect, empowering educators to step into leadership positions and continue the cycle of excellence and dedication that she embodies. Above all, Landa's commitment to doing what is best for her students is unwavering. She understands that each decision she makes has a profound impact on their lives and futures. Her empathetic and student-centered approach ensures that every child receives the support and resources they need to succeed. Landa's dedication extends beyond her professional responsibilities. She is known for her willingness to go above and beyond, whether that means staying late to help a struggling student, supporting a teacher with new instructional strategies, or engaging with parents to build a strong school community. It is imperative that Peoria School District honors the contract that they offered to Landa and that she signed already for the 24-25 school year. This contract represents not only a commitment to Landa, but also to the stability and continued success of our schools. Landa's return to Peoria High School is essential for maintaining the high standards and positive impact she has established. In conclusion, Mrs. Tartellio is not just an outstanding principal. She is a beacon of hope and excellence in education. Her leadership, adherence to protocol, organizational skills, and heartfelt dedication to her students' success are truly inspiring. We are fortunate to have her guiding our schools and shaping the future of our children. Let's ensure we honor her contract and welcome her back to Peoria High School as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Isaac Glover.
Evening, board. So I was just coming to address something that was said by another commenter a few board meetings ago. She was wearing her religious garb, which was a mask. And she basically said that, Heather, she was saying Heather, but she didn't say her name. She was saying that Heather kind of should not criticize the board or the things that the board does unless it's constructive criticism. I take issue with that because when you can't even get a second on a motion sometimes to figure out why, in private, not in public, when the Peoria High School principal has been kind of just put on administrative leave, and you can't get a second on that, sometimes the only thing you can do is just offer criticism because your voice isn't being heard. And to your credit, Ms. Proudfit, you did second it the last time, but it was just to address that. I think there was something else, and I'm probably forgetting it, so I can come back later, the next board meeting. But that's basically it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Justina Carnahan. Did I say that right?
Close enough. Good evening, all. I am here again to speak on behalf, or just to speak of Landa Tartaglio's character again, as I did in our last meeting. I did want to speak and read some messages that were sent to me from former parents and colleagues, and then also just things that were coming up just sitting here, like Ms. Myers, I've worked with you, and Landa has always just budget. She's done so many things with just having such a small budget and always working with that small budget to ensure the best and getting the best for all of her students, and working with community members, and being creative about getting more funding for students and things like that, and just going above and beyond again. Mrs. Vesley, I know she's worked with HR to ensure that holding staff accountable and having the best and highest expectations for everyone. and putting people that needed to be on improvement plans, even though it's tedious and unpleasant, but actually doing her job as a principal to get those things done, and seeing firsthand many schools that do not follow through with that process and just decide to transfer bad employees to other schools for them to deal with. And then even Mrs. Aries, like, you know, I know she's had to contact or, you know, work, and she just always follows procedures. So like if she needed to go and work with Mrs. Aries to make sure that publication was out, she just follows protocol and procedures. And this is from a parent that she worked with many years ago, but she says, she was always so helpful and kind when navigating the diagnosis of autism with Jenna. We had so many good IEP meetings, and I always felt like she heard me and cared about my position. Jenna loved her and felt very special in the way that Landa treated her. She's an awesome asset to any educational team. So this is a parent that is willing. She wasn't able to come, but just needed to make sure that that was clear. And then I have another former employee at Kellis High School, where she worked as an assistant principal, but this person was an instructional assistant. She first met Landa as she had volunteered at a football game at Kellis, where she mentioned her interest in working at the school, and she was very inviting. Landa was very inviting. Her friendly approach convinced her to get the job. Her time working at Kellis, Landa had always made sure that she had a safe and a supportive working environment, and that was especially important to her at that time because she was pregnant. Before she resigned, she wanted to continue. Landa continued to push her in a career in education and had reached out to help her and reassured her to reach out anytime for help, which meant a lot to her. Landa had made her feel comfortable on the job and was always kind, encouraging, and continuously supportive. So that's just, Landa is just an amazing person all around, and we hope to see her back.
Thank you. Our next public comment, Mia. I don't see Mia. Oh, there you go.
Hi, good evening. I'm here to talk about the Cactus High School baseball coach, Mike Braguglio. As far as I know, he is still the head coach. And again, this is unacceptable. There was just a story that came out about a coach in Detroit who choked out a 14-year-old student, and I don't want this to happen at Cactus. I actually care about these kids and what happens to them. I hope you all do too, and want to be proactive about this coach by firing him and not reactive after he ends up hurting a student. So please do the right thing. You all know now, so if something does happen, that's on all of you. The next thing I would like to speak about is Landa Tartaglio. I first met Landa as a parent 13 years ago. I then got to know her in the PTSO, where I was the president, and she talked me into that position. I learned a lot from her at that time. She taught me how to follow policy, protocol, procedures, especially since it was my first time as a board president. She was always by the book and made sure to follow the rules. Everything she did was for the kids, late nights, and went above and beyond for them. Even letting the kids duct tape her to the wall for a fundraiser. She was even willing to sleep on the roof overnight for a fundraiser, but they didn't reach their goal. I then got to know her even better as an employee. One of the things I missed when she left to Kellis High School was that she really created a culture of family. This wasn't something that she announced or that she forced. She was just that great of a leader and an admin. So I am asking that you put her back into her position at Peoria High School as the principal where she belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any takers on this public comment with no name?
Probably. I'll concede.
I swear it's your writing.
I'm glad that you know my writing. Thank you, President Proudfit. So I just wanted to give a kudos to a student who recently graduated. She made the news, actually. She was a Peoria student who Guess wasn't getting everything she wanted in person on campus, so she took her learning into her own hands and went online, got the credits she needed, graduated, and now she has a full ride scholarship to NYU Medical. So I think that just illustrates that it's not one-size-fits-all education here in Peoria, that our students can take the initiative to take control of their education. And one other way I think that we can probably do this in partnership with WestMec, for example. They have a lot of programs that we don't offer here in Peoria. And there are a lot of students, for example, I had the opportunity to go guest teach at WestMec for their law enforcement program. And I know that we have great law enforcement programs here in Peoria Unified, but WestMec, like I said, has programs that we don't necessarily have. After being given a tour of different WestMec campuses and seeing what they had to offer, some of the students that I was teaching in these classes are Peoria students, and their biggest complaint was transportation. So I'm glad that we have a new transportation director. Maybe this is something that they can tackle, one of many things. But either the morning sessions or the afternoon sessions at WestMec, our students are hungry for this education. For example, the welding program, if I were to take that as an adult, to get certified in the welding program, it's a $40,000 program, which our kids would get for beans, right? So I think that's something that we should also look at to ensure the success of our students and allow them the opportunity to take the education into their own hands. The other thing is, thank you for responding to my email, Mr. Sandoval and Mrs. Ewing, for the, there's a recent lawsuit about the inappropriate taxing of residential real estate in our district. I know we have a share of that coming our way, but I'm confident, Dr. Summers, you'll be able to lead us out of this $7 million hole. I think that's what they were talking initially, but I know that we'll find a way to get out of this hole. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure to write my name next time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toby. That concludes our public comment portion of tonight's meeting. We're going to move on to section 10.1, upcoming, our report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Airy?
President Proudfit, members of the board, nothing to add this evening.
Wonderful, thank you. 10.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers?
Thank you. Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the governing board. I do not have an update this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. 11.1, board members' opportunity to readdress any agenda items. Is there any board members who want to readdress anything? Mrs. Ewing? I don't have anything. Mr. Sandoval?
I don't have anything either. Thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
No, I don't have anything.
I don't have anything either, so we're going to move on to 11.2, request for future agenda items. Start with Ms. Ewing.
I don't know how to, well, maybe you can help me with this, but one of the things that we see is folks coming, so what I'm asking for, let me just start there first and then I'll try to describe it, is whether it is a presentation at a regular board meeting, whether it is at a study session, but something so the community can understand that when we have issues of concern of employees' conduct, when there is any sort of issue brought up, what is our process? Because I know that we have policies. Some of the folks were talking about policies that I was like, I think it's GCQF policy but I think it would be helpful for the public to understand what is our time frame, what are our processes that we have to go through, and what are we allowed to talk about if we have scenarios that there is an investigation going on, because I know we're limited, and what does that time frame look like? So anything that could provide our community that information, and also what are the law requirements, so policy and law. I just think that would be helpful. Does that, I know Dr. Summers, you and I had some conversation around that, but does that seem to, do you fully understand what I'm asking for? Do you need any more information?
I think I understand.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I will second.
Do we need to formalize the bringing back our presentation around GCQC or, no? Okay. With that said, I don't have any items for this evening. Thank you.
Mrs. Rex?
I have two. I don't know if it will correlate with Mrs. Ewing, our principal association. What are our policy? What is the policy currently in place when we're dealing with our assistant principals and our principals being put on admin leave? What is the policies that are in place if we need to look at them? I don't know if that can be kind of added in.
I'll second just in case.
Yeah, thank you.
Second both.
And the next one is really, really hard, but I want a vote to reinstate our Peoria High School principal. This has gone on long enough. I want a vote by this governing board.
Is that something a governing board can even vote on?
Maybe asking.
Quite simply, no. It's not
That's what
the
my
purview of the
understanding was.
board to make decisions regarding the employment of employees, with the exception of the superintendent.
That was what my understanding was. That's why I wanted that clarification.
I guess clarification legal-wise, if we can ask the board attorney that question, and then what recourse does the governing board have regarding reinstating, or if we accept anything else from district administration on an employee. How does that work as a governing board? Getting legal questions around that from our board attorney.
And would that be okay, like in a Friday report?
Yeah, that's fine, because it's obviously attorney, legal advice. So yeah, that's fine.
I will second that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it for you?
Yes, that was it.
Okay, there are a lot of things out there that we've requested tonight, so let's just leave it with that. I do not have any items to request currently. Moving on to 12.1, adjournment. I motion that we adjourn this meeting at 8:18 p.m.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Board members, please cast your vote. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and get home safely.